Hello and welcome to the Results with Ronnie podcast series. I am Ronnie Walker, your master coach of exceptional relationships and sex. And today we're going to discuss why you are single. So, why are you? Why are you single? Why is there another Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday morning, you're going to happy hour, another evening with the fellas, another night with the ladies, another sitting at home watching TV, when you'd rather be with someone in your arms, kissing, hugging, cuddling, making love, reading poetry, listening to music, walking on the beach holding hands, sitting on the patio, taking trips, plane, train, road trips. Why is this something that you are now currently doing with your girlfriends, your guy friends, family members, when you'd rather do it with someone that you are intimately involved with? We're going to discuss this, and there's ways that I can sit here and stretch this out to go 4 or 5 hours long, but I won't. I've spoken to over 100 men and 100 women and asked this question of them. And mind you, it took some time to get all these phone calls done and have the conversations. Because for some, it was really pretty much cut to the chase. They can tell you in 2 to 3 short sentences as to why that is. Others took a little longer. And although sometimes, I can say for the most part, the reasons are pretty much the same, I'm always curious as to why they come to that conclusion. Or how did they arrive at this point, why the reason their marriage is XYZ. And that's where the stories get interesting. Because, of course, the way men see things is different from the way women see things. So we can talk about spirituality, we can talk about energy, we can talk about belief systems, a lot of that. But what I'm going to do is list a few things that were pretty much the theme for the men and women that I spoke to. And let me take a moment to thank all of those men and women that took the time out of their schedules to speak to me and share their thoughts, not just as to why they're single, but the deeper questions that I asked after that. And I'll share that on another podcast, because then if I did that, then definitely we're going into 2 or 3 hour ranges. And I really want to try to make this short and sweet, but at least try to cover some of what they're sharing. Because a lot of what they're sharing, I have to say, even after they listed their reasons, they wanted to do this for the benefit of others. That maybe for some reason or another, that they could not voice while they are while they're single. They're still trying to navigate as to why, find what's going on in the universe, in their world. So, what was the first thing that I normally hear when I ask a person while they're single? Now, this is an answer that I get mainly from women. Men will say it, but not in this exact word. And that number one word is healing. They're healing. Now, that healing may come from coming out of a relationship that was some form of abuse. It could come from some form of infidelity, but usually when I asked what are they healing from, it had something to do with an abuse. And that's pretty deep. And out of if I'm remembering the exact number, 162 women. This was overwhelmingly the top word I heard, which means there's a lot that we as humans, we as men and women need to work on. The thought that someone could cause this type of harm to another person really struck me. And those stories are pretty deep. Because for some of these women, this is something that went on for some time before they decided to break free of that. And the stories are painful, fascinating. I love hearing the victory of leaving and the journeys that got them to the point to leave. But they are honest enough within themselves to realize that they are not ready to venture back into an intimate relationship with someone else. So needed time to heal. Another reason, working on business. And by working on a business, many of them have just started a business. They left corporate life. Now, mind you, some of them are still working a 9 to 5, and the business is on the side. So what they're working on is their business is to replace their full-time income at the job and making sure they can pay for benefits. But with that being the case, thinking that they can go out there dating and finding a balance to find time to dating is walking a tightrope. Some have found a way to do that for a little bit, but at some point or other, something suffers, either the job, the business, or the relationship. And many have learned that there really isn't a balance. Things are just going to be out of whack the way it is. And it's just finding someone to work that journey with them, to be on that journey, to understand that they are trying to do something to better themselves. They're tired of working for the man or for the woman, and they want to create their own. They're at a point in their life where they want to make their own mark and create their own legacy. They want something that they can actually pass down to a family member, a son, a daughter. But at the same time, if they're single and they're trying to date, it poses a challenge. Because sometimes for those people, they get the feeling that you think of the business more than you think of them. And when that choice comes, and should they give that person an ultimatum, now you have a whole nother problem. Because what tends to happen is the person is going to choose the business over the person they're dating. So they end up single again. Now it's funny because, see, in this category, you'll find many of them, feel no way, it's fine. They understand that's just, the price of building a business. And they know within their heart of hearts that there's someone out there that's going to understand, or maybe he or she may come along when the business is built. These are the things that happen. So although they're disappointed that it didn't work out, they're still happy and they still move along, full speed ahead. And those stories are just as interesting and fascinating. What's also unique is that these individuals also didn't give too much consideration when I asked them to, well, how do you know that this person wasn't exactly the one? How do you know that you didn't let the good one, that one, get away? And they always says, well, if they were, then they would have understood. Those stories are beautiful. Let me tell you, when you listen to these, when you listen to these men, men and women, it's some great stories and some heartaches as well. But I really enjoyed the fact that they're okay with that. Third one, hurt. Now, this is something that, again, women will say hurt, men will say, man, she burned me. She tried to get over. She thought I was a dummy. It's really interesting to hear the difference between men and women when they're describing these particular scenarios or trying to describe it in an answer to these questions. It's really cool. I mean, if you really just sit down and listen to men and women when you ask them, hey, why are you single? And I know, ladies, you hear it all the time. You look great, great job, have your degrees. Why are you single? And it drives women crazy. Well, trust me, it happens with the men too. There are men out there who can cook. There are men out there who can fix cars. There are men out there who can paint. There are men out there doing incredible things in the community, churches. And then someone says, why are you single? Is something wrong with you that we don't know about? You know, they say solid water runs deep. There's got to be something there. And yet, it's not until they sit down talking to someone that they are comfortable with that they'll tell you these stories as to why. In a lot of cases, it wasn't that long ago that they were in a relationship. But as circumstance would have it, something happened and now they're single. And they're hurting. And during that hurt, some hurt people go back into the dating world and they hurt other people. Others stay to themselves. Others stay to themselves and end up doing one of two things. They become a better person and evolve and grow and extract their lessons from what happened. Others become very, very, very bitter and angry. And to me, that's when coaching comes in. Because that, in fact, again, as I said earlier, where hurt people hurt others. And it's not pretty. And whereas we think that that is something that men do exclusively, I can assure you that there are more than enough women who does the same thing. They do the same thing. In fact, some women were honest enough to share that with me. They're not proud of it, but these are the things that happen. Kind of, you look at it as a self-preservation. They want to do whatever they can to feel better. Or not, believe that someone didn't get over on them. So they do that to someone else. Or to try to cover up the pain. To real bad results in the end. It's not worth it. So what I suggest you do is you go into the healing. So that you don't go on and pass that on to others. Number 4, the reason people are single. Spiritual equivalent. Some of them know it as being equally yoked. They're waiting on the Lord to drop a good man, a good woman in their lap. Now, some of them don't say it exactly like that, of course. But what you will find is that as they describe it, it sure sounds that's what you're waiting for. He knocks on a door or being delivered in a package like FedEx or UPS or something of that nature. But she has to be a man of God. A woman of, he has to be a man of God. She has to be a woman of God. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just when I ask, what does that look like for them, where you find very few women that are very precise and intentional how they answer that question. Others are just all over the place. And I wish them well, because sometimes what they're looking for is Jesus himself or herself. I'm like, wow, okay. But again, who was Ronnie Walker to say that what they want is wrong? But they're looking for a believer because they're believers. Number 5, as to why women and men are single, they're working on themselves. Now see, working on oneself can come under a number of categories and the motivation behind that. So, one way a person is working on themselves is they're working on their money, their finances. They know that, especially if you're a man, to go out and date in the dating world, yes, it does take money at some point. And it's okay to have your finances in order. But not only that, they want to make sure they have the savings in order. They want to make sure they have money set aside for a rainy day. And usually this is a talk of men that are very intentional in finding a wife. He wants to make sure that he has his finances in order, because the woman that he's attracted to requires that. It's not like the gold digger that so many other men try to say that women are, when in fact what they want is security. They want to make sure that the lights are going to stay on and that there's food on the table. So these men, and some of them have some very interesting stories, because a lot of them, they made some bad financial mistakes in the past. Some of them made bad investments. Some of them are paying through the nose in child support and alimony. Others just really balled out and, between the strip clubs, some of them alcohol, some of them drugs, some of them, they just really had no regard for thinking that they were going to need this for some time in the future. The money was ever, going to continue to flow. Money just grew on trees, and it was always coming until it stopped coming. And so, in essence, they're starting over. And during that time, they realize that the type of woman that they're attracted to is looking for a certain type of man, a good steward of his money. And of course, there are other attributes that they're looking for. But again, when you look at the rate of divorce in this country between infidelity and lack of money, and you've got the discipline to make sure that infidelity is not a factor, then the one thing you do want to make sure is you have your money in order. Another way a woman or man works on himself is weight. Now, this is a touchy subject. However, I have to commend the people that really come to the realization that they needed to get their weight in order. If they're going to spend a lifetime with someone, you want to increase your chances by making sure you are healthy. You see, they believe that this normalization of overweight people is just a detriment to the community. So they need to get that in order. These men and women also realize and have accepted the fact, it's one thing to know it, but it's another thing to accept it, that the men and women that they're attracted to, where they're looking for someone who is taking care of their health, and the first indication of that is the exercising and the weight. Now, you can speak to a 50-plus-year-old, 40-plus-year-old. Are we talking about getting down to the weight when they were 18, 19? No. But a lot of these men and women that I spoke to, they realize that they've blown up to a size that's just not. And a day and age where it's not the other men and women in church you're competing against. It's those Instagram models that you see on your phone and desktop. You're on your dating app, and you want to make sure you look your best. So the weight was a very big thing that I hear among the men and women. They also accepted the fact that I can't expect my man or woman to look a certain way, and I'm looking like a busted can of biscuits. Now, some may have taken a shortcut using a doctor to get some results. Others change their lifestyle eating habits. They're in the gym, yoga, meditation, walking, jogging, the bike, you name it. The variety of ways that men and women are out there putting in the work to lose that weight so that they can be all they can be to that man or woman they're looking to meet is important to them. So that's a big part of working on oneself. And I do see the movement of men and women that are really doing that and taking advantage of that. They know. And it's also something they wanted to make known that, look, if you're going to be out here holding people to certain standards, then make sure that you hold to those standards as well. Another part of a person working on oneself is mental. Some men and women realize that they have some challenges mentally they need to address, and they're seeking help on. Some had stories of discovering that in a relationship, and they didn't know why it was going left. And they had to come to the realization that there were some challenges they needed to deal with. Some of them found that out after their partner left. And they didn't see the pattern until then. That it happened before repeatedly. Many were in denial, but others discovered that, you know what, there's some help that I need. And so that's why they're single. They need to get their mental affairs in order. And I wish them all, anyone who's listening to this, I wish you well in that journey. I really do. For others that are single and working on themselves, they're working on life circumstances. Based on the age, you may be taking care of parents that are old. And based on the health and well-being of those parents, some may need more care than others. And some can't afford nursing homes or their home. Or it made, more economical sense for them to be home. And what that does is that adds a challenge in the dating world. Because sometimes you have to be home by a certain time to bathe and feed, provide medication for them. Some of them may provide some help part-time. There are life circumstances that happen. That's just one example of many. And that makes it a challenge to date. And it's always during these times that you meet some incredible men and women, but they also understand that they don't want to put that person through that. They look for someone more flexible, who's ready to travel at a drop of a hat. And so for them, they're not in a position based on the circumstances that's happening. Now, of course, they're working on that so that they can be able to provide the services needed for their family members. But until then, they decided to step out of the dating space and get a handle on that. And those are just a few categories in the working yourself section of why men and women are single. But number 6 You have a lack of trust in others. These are the men and women that are tired of being hurt, and it just seems to be a repetitive pattern that they're being lied to, cheated on, and they're done. They just said, right now, I don't need this type of drama, being blindsided. So they step out of the ring and choose dating is not for them right at this moment. And that takes work. That takes work, because those cuts can run very, very deep. Very deep. And those stories, oh boy, the lengths that some men and women go to is intense. It really, really is intense. Seventh reason as to why men and women are single: belief system. Yes, mental, your belief system. See, many, and this is what, although this is last, this is definitely certainly not least. Heck, I would even put that up there with healing, between healing and working on business, working on your business and building one. It's like one and then you have 1A. There are so many men and women that believe that there is no one available. All the good ones are married, dead, or they haven't been born yet. They believe that they're liars, and the ones that are left are liars, cheaters. They're overweight and broke. And there's nothing that anyone can tell them. And far from it from me to tell them otherwise either, because I already know they're not ready to hear any sort of message of positivity, of positive vibes. They're just not there yet. They really truly believe that there's no one left, because all the ones that they've met, the ones that they like, ended up hurting them in some form or fashion, or ghosted them. Or they want some sort of open relationship, or they just want to hit it and quit it, when in fact they want a committed long-term relationship. Now, it is often said that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and that's definitely the case in that. What I'm not going to do is try to convince them otherwise, because they're just not ready to hear it. And I can tell that just from the tonality and the passion in which they express this. And mind you, I hear this just as passionately from men as I do from women. Give a man a chance to let it rip, oh my goodness. Heck, the internet is full of men voicing their thoughts about the lack of women, or non-existent women that are left. Some of these men believe their mama was the last good woman that ever existed. Some women felt that daddy was the last good man they ever had. They grew up with and taught them and raised them, provided. But these men out here, Ronnie, you have no idea. And the fellas to me, Ronnie, you have no idea. It's crazy out here. I'm like, well, why wouldn't I have an idea? Of course I do. I have an idea. Now, my thoughts are different. It runs contrary to what both men and women believe. Because Ronnie believes that there are plenty of men out there. Good men. Ronnie believes that there are many good women out there. And they're getting married. Just on my Facebook feed alone, I saw 4 people getting married. One's 30s, the other 40s, the others in the 50s. So yes, there are available men out there. Yes, there are available women out there. But their belief system is ironclad at the moment, at least at the time when I'm making this phone call and I'm speaking to them. And I'm going to respect their right to have whatever opinion they have at the moment. And the best I can do is to encourage them to have a consult with me to help them get over that. And some have a self-esteem issue. There are those who believe they're not worthy for what they're looking for. And those stories can run pretty deep as well. Especially asking them how they got to the point where they feel that they're not worthy. So there you have it. Some of the reasons men and women are single. These are the answers that they gave me. Now there are others, but again, a lot of this overlaps, intersects. But this is pretty much, this list of 7.5, gives you an idea, or pretty much covers the basis as to why these men and women are single. There are also some that find out dating apps is just as challenging as going to a club. Hell, there are even studies out there that will tell you, that some of the dating apps are kind of racist in nature, believe it or not. There's some sort of form of racism in there. And looking into this, I'm going, wow, I never thought that. And these are people that are Asian, Black, Hispanic, as they've used the apps. And I'm like, that's surprising. And again, these are studies that's been done multiple times, be it, and not just in America, over in Europe as well. A lot of dating apps. And with that comes discouragement. With that comes disappointment, because I continue to hear stories of men and women getting to the date and the person looks nothing like their profile. I mean, it gets pretty intense when you hear those stories. Now, some are single because many had to come to the realization that the rules of engagement and dating has changed, and they really refuse to accept that. You have many more distractions, many more forms of temptation. There are many that believe that texting, is a way to build. I don't talk on the phone that much. I'd rather text. For some reason, those people always end up finding someone who doesn't text that much. They'd rather use a phone and call each other. Others are real big on the FaceTime video chats, when others would rather just see the person face to face. So technology plays a part in the way men and women use it in the dating world. The person who prefers face-to-face always ends up meeting people who are all about the technology. The people with the technology meets someone who's all about the personal one-on-one connection. And so that's all mixed up, back, forth, you just name. I mean, to hear those stories is another show in and of itself. Divorce is also another reason people are single. And dating after divorce presents its own share of challenges. Many are getting back into the dating space after being married 15, 20, 25 years and realizing those people as well that the rules of engagement have changed. And they've yet to adapt to that. And with that comes frustration, because they have a lack of patience, and they're tired of taking the higher ground. Their fifth bad date in the past 2 weeks. Some of them are still in the fight of going over assets division between their ex-spouse, which brings its own share of headaches when you're trying to date and move on with your life. You know the story. When you have an ex-husband, ex-wife still trying to put a pin in your side because you've decided to move on and they haven't gotten there yet. Hell, some of them you have someone else, but they just don't want you to have that. That causes drama as you are trying to navigate the space of dating. Some don't have the nerve to fight, so they step out and rather remain single. Dating as a single mother, dating as a single father is not as easy as many thought. And based on the age of the children, plays a big part in that. If you're back in the dating world and you're a single mother and the child is 3, 4, 5 years old, that presents a different challenge to a man or woman than if he or she is 15, 16, 17, or 18. One may be more flexible than the other. What if children are, well, grown woman or man? Well, then they're out of the house, you're free. But for those mothers and fathers with young children, dating has its own world. And it's strange because I speak to them, and as I had the conversation, I said, well, who are you looking for? And you'd be surprised as to how many men that are in custody of their children are looking for someone who doesn't have. And the same with the women who are in custody of their children are looking for a man that does not have children. And some of them really couldn't understand, that when you try to word it into ways to why it's such a challenge. Now, for some of them, the light went on. It went on. It's just like, okay, I never thought of it that way. So dating as a single parent takes work, takes patience, and some just says, you know what, let me just chill out for a minute, give it a few years. But they do miss the companionship. And it's also different if the mother was married when she had the children as are those who did not marry the father of the children, and vice versa. Men and women look at a difference, although to the person who is a mother father doesn't see that, but they do. Now, I stated that case, and they understood, although some of them didn't like it. But again, their lack of patience, their frustration, they said, Ron, I just don't need this right now. So I decided not to go into the dating space. So with just those extras, what is a single person to do? If you're a single person that is determined to find someone, well, since the show is about results with Ronnie, well, what does one do? Ronnie, what does a single man, what does a single woman do to increase their chances of success? Well, first of all, it starts with a belief. I cannot tell you how many times I speak to a man or woman who claims that they're out there in the dating world when they believe that there are no good men or women out there. And my question is, well, why the hell are you wasting your time? Just go get some pets and just call it a day. If you don't believe they exist, then what are you out there looking for? One night stands? Hit it and quit it? What are you looking for? You can't be looking for a significant other if you don't believe there's no good ones out there. You really have to change the way you believe. Because even if you find him or her, you're going to chase them away. Because they can smell someone who doesn't believe that they're that person for them a mile away. You're going to overthink everything they do. The insecurities are going to come out. And he or she is in the win. And if you're lucky, they'll tell you to your face. Most will just ghost you. Another thing you can do is be honest about what you are looking for and stand for. Make sure you're very clear on what you're looking for in a man and a woman when you're talking character, sense of humor. Nothing wrong with wanting particular height. Now, women make education a thing that men really doesn't matter. So if you have accolades that you've achieved in your life, that's great. But make sure you're sure that the man that you're interested in considers that a plus. Because you may find up getting your feelings hurt because that may not matter to him or her. But find out what you're looking for and stand stronger. So if you're looking for a man who is a believer and is at church every Sunday, then stand on that. If you have someone who only goes during Easter or Christmas sermon or whatever, then don't compromise. If you're looking for someone who works out the way you work out, then stand on that. He's out there. She's out there. You're taking care of your body. You want to make sure the person that you're looking for is taking care of their body. So that's important. Stand on that. Don't be ashamed. There's nothing wrong with wanting a fit man or woman. Don't let anyone shame you into liking something that doesn't turn you on just because they hit the other qualities that you're looking for. No, you can have it all. Just be a little patient. Which leads into my other point. Yes, you can have it all. This mindset of, well, at least they hit all of this. You just have to sacrifice that. Bullshit. Go get it all. Find him or her with what you're looking for. Now, time and experiences will show whether you're unrealistic about some of those things. But again, there's nothing wrong with wanting an incredibly good-looking man that has other attributes as well. You don't have to sacrifice those looks. You don't have to sacrifice that education or that money. No, you can find one and all. Another part to putting the odds in your favor while dating. Please eliminate the naysayers, wanting company. So if you've gotten yourself to the point where you believe that there are good men and women out there, then you cannot spend your time around people who still are not there yet. They are a drain on everything that you stand for and are about. You don't need that energy in your life. So they either rise to the occasion or you leave them home when you're going out, whatever. Love them where they are, but when we're talking about the dating thing, you don't want to go back and forth with someone on that, especially when you've had to put the work in yourself and know that there are good men and women out there. Don't lose yourself in your search. The type of men that you're attracted to have certain qualities of that woman. That's fine. Some of them may have a certain body shape or weight shape. Men are not as picky on the whole education thing. If you have it, great. But I really never hear men talking about, I'm looking for a woman who's 6 PhDs and 5 bachelors and another master's. And, they really don't get into all of that. They do want an intelligent woman. But a lot of what women lead with are things that are not that attractive to a man. I mean, at least not saying it's not attractive, it just doesn't matter to them. Find those what that is. But don't lose yourself. Don't lose who you are in the process of doing that. If it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. Maybe the type of man you're looking for aren't those men. Doesn't make them bad for having their standards. And it's the same for women. Fella, there's a price of admission. Sometimes the price is a little up there. Sometimes it's not as. They're both incredible women. But are you willing to pay the price without losing yourself? And when I say pay the price, I'm not talking about it from a money perspective. I'm just talking about if, these are the type of women who are looking for educated men of certain colleges. All right, well, if that's not you, then that's not you. Don't go into college debt trying to meet those standards if that's not what you want to do. Maybe what you're looking for are great women who are not looking for a man to have certain academia standards. But more than anything, ladies and gentlemen, it starts with a belief. And this is something that you need to lead with. Because if you're not, it will show itself each and every time. Just when things are getting good. So I hope I were able to provide some value and sharing with you the thoughts of many men and women as to why they are single. Now, you may have some things that you want to add on to that. By all means, share that. You can reach me at Ronnie at resultswithronnie.com. Ronnie at resultswithronnie.com. If you have some thoughts, concerns, contribution to the station, to this podcast, by all means, share that. I welcome that. I welcome the feedback. The feedback has been great. The downloads have been great. You are coming through better than I expected, and I'm grateful to you for that. For those of you who would like some form of consultation or coaching in these areas, you can go to resultswithronnie.com. That's www.resultswithronnie.com. The podcast is on MrRelationshipMan.com. Or you can go to YouTube and look for Results with Ronnie Radio, and there you will see me. You'll see me in a blue suit. And make sure when you go there, subscribe and hit the notification. There's a little bell there that you hit so that whenever I drop a new podcast, you're one of the first to know. But make sure you subscribe. I'm trying to get 10,000 subscribers to tune in and to listen into what I'm sharing. This is over 20 years experience. So I have a lot to talk about and a lot to share. And it's my prayer that I'm providing some form of value to what you're looking for in your life as a single person, as a person in a relationship, as a leader in your community. So feel free to reach out to me. You can also contribute, add to the Patreon that I have on the page. PayPal, the Cash App information is also there. And that helps with continuing on with the podcast. I can't thank you enough for all that you've done and all that you continue to do. My name is Ronnie Walker, Master Coach of Exceptional Relationships and Sex. And we have been talking about why are you single? So again, reach out if you feel that I provided some value to you or things that you feel you'd like to add. I welcome you. I want you to have a wonderful evening. Take care until next time.